Okay, so many of you asked me to make a raw food video, and here's my attempt at it. Okay, let's start with the chicken. I usually get leg quarters. They look like this. They have the leg portion, part of the thigh, and part of the back. So take your knife, make sure it's sharp, and start like this. You cut down this way, around like that. There's no bones right here. There's no bones right here, so you can just cut that meat out. You have a nice chunk of meat there. You can just kind of cut it into portions there. Cut at the first joint here where the leg is, and then cut, there's another joint right here, and you can find it easier if you cut some of the meat out. You cut that joint like that, that's the thigh portion, and then here's the back portion. The back portion has lots of bone in it. For the leg portion, sometimes when you put it in the meat grinder, depending on your meat grinder, this joint right here is too thick, so it'll just bounce around in there and it won't go down in there. So what you can do is you can take a meat cleaver and just cut off that joint end. You might want to cut off both ends actually. Let me clear this off so you can see the joints better. Okay, so keep your mouth closed when you're doing this because meat could fly up into your mouth. So just cut that off like that. And don't feed the cats this, they could choke on it. It's real hard. And you only need to do this for the leg portion. The thigh portion, the bone's small enough. And usually this backbone, it's easy to grind, but there's a lot of ligaments in it, so sometimes it'll clog up your meat grinder, and I'll show you what to do for that later. Okay, so let's do the supplements first. Hold on. Okay, so what I use is salmon oil I get from Trader Joe's, and I use taurine that I get from revivalanimalhealth.com. And sometimes I use other supplements like this Acidophilus forte, which you can also get at Revival Animal Health. But I'm out of that, I think, yeah. So I'm not going to use that today. And there's other supplements you can do like Bourgie, stuff like that. But normally I just do these two. So what you would do is you'd put a couple scoops into your bowl and a little bit of water. To kind of make a liquid. Mix that up. Now when I'm done with the video, I'm going to grind about 30 pounds of meat, but I'm just going to grind this little bit of meat just to show you what to do, so I can keep the video short. So with the salmon oil, you just put it in the meat grinder. You don't break the capsules, you just put it in the meat grinder. So put a little bit of meat in first, then put the salmon oil in, and just kind of cover it with your hand or something, because the salmon oil, the capsules, when they break, they'll squirt. So you want to cover it so that they don't go across the room. So, okay. So put that in first. And pour, I don't know, I usually pour like a handful maybe in there. And I'm grinding a lot of meat. Oopsie, yeah, it works. Put that in. Once you grind quite a bit of meat, you should put a little bit of liver in. When I grind 50 pounds or so, I'll put this whole thing in, but I'm not going to do that right now. You can just dump it in Really, I would dump the whole thing in if I was grinding all meat right now. You don't want to use too much liver though. Okay, so just grind that in. Remember I told you how the back portion has lots of like ligaments and stuff in it? Sometimes what it'll do is it'll clog up the grinder. And what you can do about that is, instead of taking the grinder all apart and cleaning that out, you can just put some ice down into the grinder. So if you put ice down into the grinder, you put more than that, but it'll instantly freeze that meat in there, and then you'll be able to grind it right out. Okay, so let's just pretend that you have all your meat ground up and you're ready to bag it up. Let's just move this out of the way. I have two different size bags here. I have these small bags, and they're serving size bags, and these are great for if you're a breeder and you want to send kittens home with their meat. What I normally do is, well, I learned this trick, to fold the bag, the top part in underneath. That way when you put the meat in, you're not getting it on the outside of the bag. I forget where I learned that from. Another breeder, I think. But anyway, the meat will usually not be this runny. It's this runny because I only have a little bit in and I put a lot of water in. But one serving size portion is about a big spoonful, a little more than this if it wasn't runny. But you just take that, let's just say that that's a serving size, and then you fold it up, let the air out, close it up, and flatten it out. That way it'll thaw out really quickly when you go to thaw it out. And what I usually do is I'll fill these bags up and then put these bags in the big bag and then put it in the freezer. It stacks real nicely. And then you can just send this home with your kitten buyers. And I usually put about 14 servings in there. It's about a week's worth, twice a day, once in the morning, once at night to feed them. In order to thaw this out, you would just soak it in a sink full of hot water until it gets warm and thawed out, and then just feed it to the cats. And one more thing, sometimes with this meat grinder, I don't know how your meat grinder is going to be, or is, but sometimes with this meat grinder, this gets stuck on here, and I can't get it off. So what I do is I just turn it on, and if it comes off good, it did come off that time, but sometimes it still doesn't come off, and if that happens, I take this off, turn it on, put more ice through it, and it'll push it out. And you can clean it, because this part of this meat grinder doesn't come off easy, so I have to clean it separate. And that's about it.